Hello, and welcome to week 3, where we're going to be focusing on the art of listening. As you can see from our image here, we have an example of the art of listening and what it entails. These are Chinese insights on the art of listening, so take a moment to look at the different components here and what comes to mind as you look at each one. As you can see, it starts out, well, I guess it's circular in nature, but let's start with the blue, the eyes to see. So listening is not only about hearing, but it's also about seeing. It's that heart we need to feel as we listen, the mind we need to think, the ears we need to hear, and kind of underscored here by that undivided attention. We really need to focus on what it is that is being said to us and shared with us. So this is the art of listening. We're going to actually look at it a little bit more in depth and how it applies to this course here on the next slide. So if we scroll down to our next slide, I can get this to work. We're going to model this art of active listening by having you do a couple of things. First, you're going to go to the 2 discussion boards that you guys did last week, and you're going to make a comment on a peer's identity web and a peer's identity poem. So you're going to make 2 comments at least, one on the identity web, one on the identity poem, and you're going to use the prompts that are below here, bulleted. I'm going to go through them to do your response. This is an example. Since we're not in the class, we're going to model active listening by doing this activity online. So in order to be an active listener, you need to engage in prompts such as name the peer and say, my peer and I both thought, and put their name. We both talked, thought, agreed, discussed, decided, or used. Again, talk about who it was and what you guys did that was similar. We have similar thoughts or evidence about. Something that, and then name your peer, said that stayed with me was. And then I wanted to acknowledge something that peer's name, in your peer's name and what they said. Or finally, your peer and then helped you think about, and then what they helped you think about. So again, using one of these 6 prompts, you're going to comment in on at least one peer's identity web, and then using a different prompt, comment on another peer's identity poem. So you have at least 2 comments on those 2 items. This will be our model of active listening online. After we've done that, we're going to move into a closer look at what social comprehension is in terms of our text and how that relates to culturally responsive teaching. So if we look at our first definition here, social comprehension is how we make meaning from and mediate our relationship in the world. This is what our text author is talking about, the social comprehension, and how we need to engage in that, not only in our personal lives, but in our classrooms as well. Then we have culturally responsive teaching. Culturally responsive teaching is defined as using the cultural characteristics, experiences, and perspectives of ethnically diverse students as conduits for teaching. So here we kind of see this is taken maybe one step further, the idea of social comprehension. In order to understand this and how they are similar and different, we're going to look at another slide here. So on this T-chart, you can see on the left-hand side, we have social comprehension. On the right, we have culturally responsive teaching. Now let's take a minute to look through each of these. I'm going to read through the social comprehension, and then we're going to compare it to our culturally responsive teaching. As I read through these, think about what you recognize or see as similarities and differences. For social comprehension, the first bullet says, we have an obligation to make kids feel visible. Second bullet, we need to recognize and value students' identities. Third bullet, we need to make time and space for them in our daily classroom routines, curriculum, and dialogue. Fourth bullet, we can help students shine a light on who they are, their hopes and dreams, talents, families' histories, how they identify culturally, the languages they speak, how they learn best, the story of their names, what they can teach us. And then finally, relationships are essential to teaching and learning because teaching and learning are social endeavors. These are the key characteristics of social comprehension as shared by our author in the text that we are reading, Being the Change. Now let's take a look at culturally responsive teaching. And what do you notice as similarities or crossovers from social comprehension? The first bullet for culturally responsive teaching says, when academic knowledge and skills are situated within the lived experiences and frames of reference of students, they are more personally meaningful, have higher interest appeal, and are learned more easily and thoroughly. Second bullet, culture encompasses many things that can have direct implications for teaching and learning, i.e. ethnic groups' cultural values, traditions, communication, learning styles, contributions, and relational patterns. And then finally, there is a place for cultural diversity in every subject taught in schools. So this is by Geneva Gay. She's one of the founders and co-creators of culturally responsive teaching. Whenever you think about that, Geneva Gay's name comes to mind. But let's look at kind of the similarities we saw between social comprehension and culturally responsive teaching. It's really about looking at the lives and experiences of our students. And again, here we have in social comprehension, we can help students shine a light on who they are. So really making those connections to our individual students, very much important in both social comprehension and culturally responsive teaching. We also need to understand that culture encompass many things, and we really need to make sure we understand that and help our children feel visible and recognized for their culture and their background, their identity. And then here in social comprehension it says relationships are essential to teaching, and in culturally responsive teaching there's a place for cultural diversity in every subject taught in schools. So we can see again that these ideas overlap very much. They really emphasize that getting to know your students, really building on those relationships, and making sure that culture is up in the forefront. So we're going to take this idea of culture and look at our own cultures a little bit more, and we're going to identify how from our identity webs we can relate to our culture, we can make statements about who we are. So for example, in my identity web, I put a little pencil here to indicate one of the identity statements I would say is first and foremost in my life is that I'm a wife and I am a mother. These are two identity statements that are really important to me. Another identity statement would be this one down here, I am Hispanic. It's again how I identify, my culture, and my background. So these are statements about who we are based on our identity webs. So I want you to affirm who you are and think about your own identity web. So take a moment to go ahead and open that up, or if you printed off a copy, go ahead and open that up. And what I want you to do is think about your identity web, take a moment to look it over, and point to something on our web that you can make an identity statement about, something you can say with confidence. For example, you might make an identity statement that says, I am a sister, I am a mother, I am Hispanic. Whatever your identity is, something that really stands out to you, go ahead and affirm that right now. And I want you, after you've pointed it out and said it, I want you to write down your 3 favorite identity statements on 3 different Post-it notes and kind of place those around your identity web to kind of see what it is that you must identify with, what really shapes who you are and what you believe in. So stop the video and take a moment to do that, and then we'll come back to our identity statements. Okay, now we're going to do another little activity here. We're going to take this just one step further. And what I'd like you to do is grab a blank sheet of paper. Any blank sheet of paper is fine. Once you have that, I want you just not to think, just do this immediately. Go ahead and draw one of the following. You can either draw a picture of a doctor, a scientist, a teacher, an athlete, a pilot. Any of those 5 occupations, just quickly draw a picture. When you're done, label the drawing with one of the names above. So if you drew a doctor, label it doctor. If you drew a scientist, label it scientist, and so on. Take about 3 minutes to do that. When you've finished your drawing, again, it's just a quick sketch. Go ahead and come back. Pause the video now to do that, please. Okay, I hope you all had a chance to complete your drawings, your sketch. Again, this is just a quick 3-minute sketch of either a doctor, scientist, teacher, athlete, or pilot. What I want you to do now is set that aside. We're going to come back to this picture in just a moment. In order to kind of build on this activity, though, we're going to look at something, a term that you've probably all heard of, and something that we all have in our lives. Bias. So if you think about the term bias, what comes to mind? I want you to think right there just for a second, as you can see our little image of the brain. Think of those terms, ideas, associations you make with the word bias. Take a minute to do that. What came to mind as you thought about that? Is bias something about like assumptions, judgments, stereotypes? What came to mind for you when you heard the term bias? We're going to build on this concept because in our text, the author talks about bias and how bias can grow throughout our lives, and it's based on several different things. For example, bias can be based on where we were raised, how and by whom we were raised. It can be based on our interactions with our friends, peers, and coworkers, even our school, community, or religion. The media or news we watch or listen to can affect and shape our bias. The politics we read or hear about other people talk about. and basically all the things that kind of make up our identity. So when I think about bias, the thing that comes to mind is my own father. I love my father dearly. He was a great man, but he was very, very, very biased. He would have nicknames for every culture of I'd ever see, even his own, which really just kind of shocked me because my father, having struggled through growing up in a society where cultural differences really weren't appreciated, weren't recognized, I would have thought that he would be more sensitive to that. But no, he was extremely biased. I don't know if that was just his defense mechanism, but it kind of affected how we were raised, how we heard him talk about people. So I know that when I went into teaching, I had to be really careful to watch those biases because I'd hear my dad in the back of my head. And for example, when I was teaching first grade, we had a little African-American student come in, and I just could hear my dad with all these biases and things he would say about the African-American population, and I just had to remember not to judge her based on that bias. She was an amazing little girl, extremely talented, very mobile. We only had her in our classroom for about 3 months, but in that short time, she really impacted me and helped me learn that we need to be careful about biases and the impact they can have on our own personal beliefs and on our teaching practice. In the book, she talks about 2 systems that kind of help us process information within our brain and how that can affect the way we react to information. So the author talks about system 1 as being part of the brain that's kind of automatic. It's also part of the brain where we make snap judgments. The messages that go through our mind take a shortcut to our reactions, responses, judgments, labels, emotions, beliefs, or our bias. In system 2, that's a system we use to focus on more logical thinking and concentration, the kind of thinking we do at school, on a long test, while reading directions to assemble something, or while we read and listen to new information to try to make sense of it. It's more controlled and conscious than a snap decision. So really, when you think about bias, it's really coming from that system 1, where we're making those spot judgments where, say, for example, we've been taught our lives to fear a certain group, so if we see a person from that group walking towards us, we might cross the street. Or if we see someone walking toward us from that group, we might get in our car and lock the door. These are kind of those snap judgments, reactions, responses that are part of that system 1. System 2 really recognizes that, okay, that is a bias. I'm really going to think about this. This person is not representative of the whole population. I'm really going to control that snap decision and think about how I interact with others. So when you think about your own life, can you think of an example of a system 1 reaction that you might have and a system 2? Take a moment to think about that and what came to mind. Now, let's go back to kind of link this from our system 1 to system 2 to a little bit of our past activity that we did, the drawing. So pull out your drawing, open it up or flip it over if you set it to the side. And I want you to ask yourself these questions. Say you picked a teacher. What gender did you choose? What age is the teacher? Does the teacher look like you or unlike you? So take a minute to look. If you chose a teacher, did you automatically choose female? Are they about the same age as you? Are they older? What do they look like? If you choose a doctor, was the doctor male versus female? What do they look like? If you choose a pilot. So think about the different people who you chose and what kind of biases you automatically associated with your sketch. Or did you not have any biases? Were you kind of in that system 2 and really thinking beyond just that snap judgment? So as you look at your picture, what do you think are the implications for you as a future teacher? How do we really address those kind of unconscious snap judgment biases that we have in the system 1 and move more towards system 2? So think about, again, what patterns you saw about the choices you made in your drawing and how those choices can show bias, even just in the slightest way, by the gender we chose, the age we chose, and the occupation we chose. As a future teacher, we have to think carefully about these choices because they will impact and influence us within the classroom. Even the subtlest things. We ask our children in the classroom to draw a sports figure. The majority are going to draw some sort of male, like a football player, a basketball player, whereas our girls, they should be thinking beyond that and thinking of things like a gymnast, a dancer, other types of things. How do we move our students beyond the snap judgments and biases that often are associated with system 1? So to get an idea of how this looks in real life, we're going to look at a little example and practice here. We're going to listen to a poem, and I want you, as you listen to the poem, to just kind of think about, sorry, I'm flipping around here. Jot down your thoughts quickly about the poem. What comes to mind as you listen to the poem? Before I start the poem, I'm going to give you the title of the poem. It's called Sure, You Can Ask Me a Question. So just by that title alone, turn over the paper where you drew your picture and write the title, Sure, You Can Ask Me a Question. And jot down a couple bullet points. What do you think the poem is about, just based on that title? Stop the video and make sure you jot down a couple bullets about the title. And I'm going to move us over to get ready to watch and listen to our poem. As you're listening, go ahead and continue to jot down information and reactions to the poem.
How do you do? No, I'm not Chinese. No, not Spanish. No, I'm American Indie. Native American? No, not from India. No, not Apache. No, not Navajo. No, not Sioux. No, we're not extinct. Yes, Indian. Oh, so there's where you got those high cheekbones. Your great-grandmother, huh? An Indian princess, huh? Hair down to there. Let me guess. Cherokee? Oh, so you've had an Indian friend. That close? Oh, so you've had an Indian lover. That tight? Oh, so you've had an Indian servant. That much? Yeah, it was awful what you guys did to us. It's real decent of you to apologize. Well, I don't know where you can get peyote. No, I don't know where you can get Navajo rugs real cheap. No, I didn't make this. I bought it at Bloomingdale's. Thank you, I like your hair too. I don't know if anyone knows whether or not Cher is really Indian. No, I didn't make it rage night. Yeah, Spirituality? Yeah, Spirituality, Mother Earth? Yeah, Spirituality. No, I didn't major in archery. Yeah, a lot of us drink too much. Some of us can't drink enough. This ain't no stoic look. This is my face.
Okay, so we've listened to our poem, Sure You Can Ask Me a Personal Question, by Diane Burns. So go ahead and reflect just for a minute. Jot down your thoughts about the poem. What did you notice? Feel free to refer to your own copy of the poem, which I have posted in the Week 3 course module. Jot down any observations you might have, thoughts, reactions. Think about how maybe the author feels. Do you notice any repetition of language? Just take a moment to kind of respond to some of those prompts and think about your own reactions as you listen to this poem. Okay, so hopefully from what you got from this poem is that there are certain stereotypes and beliefs about different groups of people that can really impact us. And these are called microaggressions. They are the identities assigned to us, and they're based on comments relating to someone's identity. The key with the microaggressions, though, is that they can leave a lasting, often negative impression on the receiver of the message. So as we heard in the poem by Diane Burns, she really had a lot of people asking her these questions that really probably had a negative impact on her or effect on her, given the connotation in which they were asked or shared. Other examples of microaggressions can be, are you Mexican? You should only speak English. Is that from Walmart? She's just going through a tomboy phase. These are all examples shared by our author of microaggressions, and as we think about these different microaggressions, think about the impact they can have on our students. To kind of associate this more personally to ourselves, take another look at your identity web, and we're going to look at how we might have microaggressions turned on us or thought about us. So for example, if we look at my identity web, I'm a mother, but my daughter is adopted. I believe I shared that with you. She's adopted from Guatemala. So one of the microaggressions I hear is that I'm not really a biological mother. I'm an adopted mother. I really don't know what it's like to be a mother because I didn't have my daughter. But she was born and I've raised her since she was an infant. So I am a mother, not just a biological mother. In my own family, I was often teased and called Casper because I'm the lightest skinned of all my siblings and even my mother. My father was more Spanish, so he's a little lighter skinned, so I kind of took more after him. But my sister and brothers are really much darker, so I was kind of called Casper. It's a microaggression from my own family. The fact that I lived in a small town from 2nd grade through 9th grade kind of gave me that Microaggression of a small town girl. I really didn't know what it's like to live in a big city, especially when I went to high school. Another microaggression may be that my illness that I overcame was cancer. So a lot of times people always say, hey, you've had cancer, you survived cancer. That's a good thing, but they kind of just associate me with that cancer rather than all the other things about me. A lot of times I've heard that I'm uncaring, which I really don't think is true. I very much try to care about all those involved in my life, my family, my colleagues, my friends, and my students. But I've heard that microaggression before, and it really kind of hurts me. And probably one of the most frustrating and shocking microaggressions is green card. When my husband and I got married, he was not a U.S. citizen, and a lot of my family and friends said, oh, he's just marrying you to get the green card. And that was just a really harsh and painful microaggression that was shared against me and my family and my husband. So these are all examples of microaggressions and the impact they can have on a person, particularly in my case, my life and the impact they've had on me. So now what I want you to do is go ahead and look at your own identity and grab at least 3, if you have small sticky notes, grab those. If not, go ahead and grab big sticky notes. And I want you to go back to your identity web and think about the labels that have been assigned to you or the microaggressions you've encountered in your life. And I want you to write 1 on each sticky note and place it around the web. Try and identify at least 3 microaggressions. If you can identify more than 3, please do so, but at least 3 and put them on a sticky note around your web. I'm going to go back to my microaggressions. You can kind of see some of the microaggressions against me. Take a moment to stop the video, identify those microaggressions for yourself, and stick those around your identity web. Okay, as you thought about your microaggressions, what kind of stood out to you? Were you surprised by some of the things that came to mind, or did you struggle to come up with some of those examples? How have those microaggressions that you did identify in the end, how have they impacted you? How have they impacted either your personal relationships, professional relationships, or own just self-identity? We need to think about the fact that some microaggressions can be intentionally, they can be malicious, they can be somewhat harsh. We need to think that even though a person might be well-intentioned in their approach or in their question, they may not fully understand how the question they're asking or the way they're looking at us might actually stem from a bias. For example, a person might want to know more about something or to compliment someone, but they don't realize how their words impact the receiver of the message. So for example, if you come across someone with a Native American background and you say, oh, I love your hair, it's beautiful, that's kind of a microaggression in the sense that you're complimenting them on their appearance, but you don't really know them. You may be well-intentioned and trying to say something nice about them, but really it's kind of a stereotype of that culture or that person. So as a future teacher, it's really important to teach students about microaggressions as soon as or before you hear students using them. Even little kids in kindergarten can say something like, oh, girls can't play with soldiers, they have to play with dolls. Well, that's a microaggression. So we have to think about how even something as simple as that statement can be a microaggression as girls, and girls have that perception of, okay, I'm going to play with dolls or pink. No, they should be able to do whatever they want. So you have to think about microaggressions starting at an early age and how we as future educators can fight those. So to kind of think of that, I want you to go back to the microaggressions you placed on your web. And I want you to come up with 1 to 3 I am not statements and write those statements on a large sticky note. So if we go back to my identity web, I would say, I am not my cancer. That is an I am not statement. It's taking that perception and turning it back on itself. I did not get married to my husband so he could get a green card. I am not uncaring. I am not just an adoptive mother. So think about how you can take those microaggressions you identify for yourself and turn those around. Take the power away from that microaggression and make it something that can empower you instead. I am not just a small town girl. Okay, take a moment to do that. And we'll go back to the directions so you can take a look at that. So using your microaggressions, come up with 1 to 3 I am not statements. Take that back. So I think the kind of point that I wanted to mention or emphasize up through this part of the presentation is that if we really want our kids to truly respect one another, if we want them to listen to each other and actually hear what they're saying, we have to meet them where they are, consider interactions from their perspectives, and find teachable moments along the way. It's all about really getting to know those kids, getting to build those relationships, understanding their perspective, and helping them understand others' perspectives as well. I hope you like this little picture here. This is me when I was a little girl on the farm. My little cousin, who's like, I treat her like my little baby doll. I babysat for her. 2 of my other cousins, and then my brother right there. So we have to think about each kid is different. Each kid brings their own background and experiences, and we need to provide, help them understand perspectives of themselves and others, and provide those teachable moments along the way. Now, to kind of wrap up on this idea of bias and microaggressions, I'm going to have you do a little assignment for me. You're going to go to the following website, and I have the website listed there. And what this is, Project Implicit, is a group of tests put together by Harvard to kind of help us identify if we have any hidden biases or microaggressions. So you're going to go to the website, you'll scroll to the bottom of the screen and say, click I wish to proceed. And then you'll pick 2 of the many tests that are listed there and take them. Be sure to document results, and you're not going to bring them to class next week, but you're going to go ahead and post those, and I'll have a box for you to upload those for me so I can see your results. This isn't something you'll have to share with anyone because I just want to know what test you took and the results you got. I'll also put like a little prompt there for reflection. So please make sure to look for that Project Implicit assignment in your week 3 course module. There'll be a link there, a little prompt, and you can post your results. Don't think too much about the test, just go ahead and do it and then kind of see what your results are at the end. This is a proven study by Harvard, so it'll be interesting to see kind of what you thought and your reactions to it. Let me go ahead, and we're going to go to just one other quick reminder for you. There is going to be a multicultural lesson plan that you're going to need to do. If you want to start to prepare for that, go ahead and go to the Assignments tab. Let me show you what that is. So if you go to your Assignments tab, click right here, and you're going to see under the Educator Conceptual Lens right here, we're going to scroll down and you will see the Multicultural Lesson Plan. Click on that, and basically what you're going to do is you're going to pick any multicultural children's book and plan a lesson for that children's book. Make sure to bring the book, complete lesson. You're not going to put them in class, but you're going to post them by February 14th. The Multicultural Lesson Plan template is here. If you open up that document or that PDF, this is what you'll see. Let's see, let me get it up for you. Hold on 1 second. I have to just click this off. Okay, so if we open up that document, the Multicultural Lesson Plan template, you'll see here, it kind of gives you some considerations. I really want you to think about these questions as you're planning your lesson. And then you're going to have a Multicultural Lesson Plan template here. You're going to fill it out, just a brief template for the specific book that you identified. You can just take this and retype the headings as you plan your lesson. This isn't due until next week, but I kind of wanted to give you an idea that it's coming up and something you should be thinking about. It's a multicultural lesson plan based on any children's book you would like. So I think that is all the information for this week. I'll be posting some sample responses using the prompts that I asked you to do for the identity webs and identity poems. I would also like to thank you guys for the great work you did. I was really moved by a lot of the poems, and the webs really gave me some great insights about who you are. I'm looking forward to hearing the comments you guys have for each other on this information. And I will be posting just a quick email to you, remind you that this presentation is now ready. I do apologize to those of you who were not able to attend the Zoom session. I meant to record it, and the computer was clicked to automatically record, but for some reason it did not record. So in the email I send you, I'll send you a quick summary of what we discussed in that Zoom session. And I'll be setting up another Zoom session in about a week. All right, you guys, thank you so much for all your hard work. Keep up the great job, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Enjoy week 3.